News, 2 people are dead after an hours-long SWAT situation just outside of Slidell.
The St. Tammany Sheriff's Office says it started about 7:30 last night in the 300 block of Lake Village Boulevard, and that's where we find Olivia Vidal this morning.
John and Kelsey, it was a long night for St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's officers as they finished wrapping up this investigation here just outside of Slidell in this nice neighborhood. The family just left the home where the incident happened. I spoke to a neighbor earlier this morning who didn't want to go on camera. She said that this incident that happened last night comes as a shock. It's heartbreaking, and she called it unfathomable. She said her neighbor was a wonderful man. In fact, she said that the man and his wife were just about to celebrate their 50th wedding anniversary. So she says that this just comes as a total shock. Here's what we know about last night's incident. Around 7:30 p.m., St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's officers received a 911 call from a residence here in the 300 block of Lake Village Boulevard. When deputies arrived to the scene, they attempted to establish contact with a person inside the home. They say that person barricaded himself inside the residence, and a SWAT team was then called to the scene. They were able to make contact with a man inside the home, but that person told SWAT responders there was an exchange of gunfire inside between himself and an acquaintance. When SWAT team members eventually made entry into the home, they discovered 2 deceased people. This is an ongoing investigation, but the initial investigation reports the person inside the home appears to have sustained a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Now, detectives are still processing the scene. The scene has since been cleared this morning since we've been out here, but it is all still under investigation. For now, reporting just outside Slidell, Olivia Vidal, Fox 8, Local First.